Welcome to this life-changing story. This story is not just to improve your English. This story is here to change the way you see your mind forever. Imagine waking up one day and realizing that you can remember names, words, lessons, and moments clearly. Imagine trusting your brain again. Imagine feeling confident when you speak, when you learn, and when you live. This is the story of a young man named Oliver, and how he went from forgetting everything to remembering the things that changed his life forever. As you listen to his story, you will learn with him. You will grow with him. And slowly, without effort, your English and your memory will begin to improve. Oliver sat alone in his small room one evening, staring at his open notebook. The pages were filled with English words he had written many times, but when he tried to remember them, his mind felt empty. He closed his eyes and tried to recall even 5 words, but they disappeared like smoke. His heart felt heavy because this was not the first time. This had happened again and again. He studied hard, but he forgot fast. He listened carefully, but nothing stayed. Sometimes he even forgot people's names just minutes after meeting them. He began to believe something was wrong with him. He began to believe his memory was weak. One day, after another disappointing class, Oliver walked slowly through a quiet park. The sun was setting, and the golden light touched everything gently. He sat on an old wooden bench and looked down at his hands. His mind was full of doubt. He wondered why his brain could not do what others could do easily. As he sat there, an old man with calm eyes and a peaceful face sat beside him. The man looked at Oliver and smiled kindly. Oliver tried to smile back, but his sadness was too deep. The old man spoke softly and asked Oliver why he looked so tired. Oliver hesitated at first, but then he shared his truth. He said he forgot everything he learned. He said he felt stupid and broken. The old man listened carefully and did not interrupt. When Oliver finished speaking, the old man said something that Oliver would never forget. He said that Oliver's memory was not weak. He said Oliver's memory was untrained. Oliver looked at him with surprise. The old man explained that memory was like a garden. If you threw seeds on the ground and never cared for them, they would never grow. But if you planted them with attention, watered them with repetition, and protected them with emotion, they would grow strong and stay forever. Oliver listened carefully. For the first time, he felt hope. The old man gave Oliver his first lesson. He told Oliver that attention was the door to memory. He explained that the brain only saved what it truly noticed. The next day, Oliver decided to try this. When he met a new classmate named Daniel, he did something different. He looked at Daniel's face carefully. He repeated his name in his mind. He said, "Hello, Daniel," slowly and clearly. He imagined Daniel standing inside a giant letter D. Later that day, Oliver smiled with surprise because he remembered Daniel's name easily. This small success filled him with excitement. Soon, the old man taught him the second lesson. He told Oliver that the brain remembered pictures better than words. Oliver began to turn everything into images. When he learned the word mountain, he did not see letters anymore. He saw a huge mountain touching the clouds. When he learned the word fire, he saw bright orange flames dancing in the dark. When he learned the word freedom, he saw a bird flying high in the open sky. His mind began to feel alive. Days passed, and Oliver continued practicing. One afternoon, he needed to remember a list of things: milk, keys, book, and phone. Before, he would forget quickly. But now, he created a story. He imagined a giant milk bottle holding his keys. The keys opened a book, and inside the book, a phone was ringing loudly. The story made him laugh. Later, he remembered every item perfectly. He realized his brain loved stories. The old man then taught him about repetition. He explained that memory became strong when it was revisited again and again. Oliver began reviewing his words every day. He reviewed them in the morning. He reviewed them at night. He used them in sentences. He spoke them out loud. Slowly, the words stopped disappearing. They stayed with him. One night, before sleeping, Oliver reviewed the word confidence. He imagined himself standing tall, speaking clearly, and smiling without fear. He slept peacefully. The next morning, the word was still there, strong and clear. He understood that sleep helped his brain save memories. Another powerful lesson came when the old man told Oliver to teach others. Oliver felt nervous, but he tried. He explained a new word to his friend. As he spoke, he noticed something amazing. The word became clearer in his own mind. Teaching made his memory stronger. Then came the most magical lesson of all. The old man told him about the memory palace. He asked Oliver to imagine his home. Oliver saw his front door, his living room, his kitchen, and his bedroom. Then he placed memories in each place. On his front door, he placed a giant book. On his sofa, he placed a talking dictionary. In his kitchen, he placed a dancing pen. When he walked through his house in his mind, he could see every memory waiting for him. Weeks turned into months, and Oliver began to change. He was no longer afraid of learning. He was no longer afraid of forgetting. His confidence grew stronger every day. One day in class, his teacher asked a difficult question. Before, Oliver would stay silent. But this time, he remembered the answer clearly. He spoke calmly. His voice was strong. His teacher smiled proudly. Oliver realized something important. His brain had not changed. His system had changed. He had learned how to use his mind. One evening, Oliver returned to the same park where he had first met the old man. He sat on the same bench and looked at the sunset. But this time, he felt different. He felt proud. He felt strong. He felt alive. The old man appeared again and sat beside him. He asked Oliver what he had learned. Oliver smiled and said he had learned to say, to feel, to imagine, to repeat, and to teach. He said he had learned to trust his mind. The old man smiled and said the final lesson. He said memory was not just about remembering words. Memory was about remembering who you are. Years later, Oliver became a teacher. He helped others who felt the same pain he once felt. He told them the same truth. He told them their memory was not weak. It was waiting to be trained. One day, a young student sat in front of him with the same sad eyes Oliver once had. The student said he forgot everything. Oliver smiled gently and told him a story about a young man who once believed he was broken. And in that moment, Oliver realized something beautiful. The greatest memory he had built was not just inside his mind. It was inside his life. He remembered his pain. He remembered his growth. He remembered his transformation. And he never forgot again. Because the day Oliver learned how to remember was the day he finally remembered himself. Oliver stood near the window that night, holding his small notebook in his hands. The cool air touched his face, but his mind was not thinking about the weather. His mind was thinking about his journey. Just a few months ago, he was a boy who believed he had a weak memory. He was a boy who felt embarrassed when he forgot simple things. He was a boy who doubted himself. But now, something had changed. Now he understood something important. Memory was not a gift. Memory was a skill. And like every skill, it could be trained. He slowly opened his notebook and looked at the first page. It was the page where he had written his first memory exercise. He smiled because he remembered how difficult it felt that day. He remembered how his mind felt tired. He remembered how he wanted to quit. But he did not quit. He stayed. He practiced. He improved. The next morning, Oliver decided to test himself in a new way. He left his house without taking his notebook. This was intentional. He wanted to rely on his brain, not on paper. As he walked through the street, he looked at everything carefully. He saw a red bicycle. He saw a woman wearing a yellow dress. He saw a dog running behind a ball. He saw a shop with a blue door. But this time, he did not just look. He connected everything with imagination. He imagined the red bicycle was made of fire. He imagined the yellow dress was shining like the sun. He imagined the dog was laughing like a human. He imagined the blue door was made of ice. He knew that strange and emotional images stay longer in memory. When he came back home, he closed his eyes and repeated everything. And he remembered almost all of it. His heart filled with excitement. He was training his brain to see, to feel, and to remember. Days passed, and Oliver started using memory techniques in his daily life. When he met a new person, he repeated their name in his mind. He connected their name with something familiar. One day, he met a man named Mr. Stone. Oliver imagined the man was made of stone. This made him remember the name easily. Another day, he met a girl named Lily. Oliver imagined lilies growing around her. These small tricks made a big difference. Oliver was no longer afraid of forgetting names. He was becoming confident. One afternoon, Oliver visited the market to buy some things for his mother. His mother told him to bring apples, bread, milk, and sugar. Before, Oliver would forget at least one item. But this time, he used the story method. He imagined a giant apple eating bread. Then he imagined bread drinking milk. Then he imagined milk turning into sugar. The story was funny and strange. When he reached the market, he did not forget anything. He bought everything correctly. When he returned home, his mother looked surprised. She asked him how he remembered everything. Oliver smiled and said, "I made a story." That night, Oliver realized something deeper. Memory was connected with attention. When he paid attention, he remembered. When he did not pay attention, he forgot. He understood that forgetting was not always because of a weak memory. Sometimes, forgetting happened because the mind was distracted. This realization changed his behavior. He started living more consciously. When he listened, he really listened. When he looked, he really looked. When he learned, he really focused. But Oliver's journey was not always easy. There were still days when he forgot things. There were still moments when he felt frustrated. One day, he tried to remember a long paragraph, but he failed. He felt angry. He felt disappointed. He sat alone and thought, maybe I'm not good enough. But then he remembered his teacher's words. Improvement takes time. Memory grows slowly, like a plant. You must water it every day. Oliver took a deep breath and decided not to give up. He broke the paragraph into small parts. He remembered one part at a time. Slowly, he succeeded. This experience taught him patience. Weeks later, Oliver noticed another change. His confidence was growing in other areas too. He was not only remembering better, he was speaking better. He was thinking better. His mind felt more active. His mind felt more alive. He started reading books and remembering the ideas. He started listening to conversations and understanding deeply. His brain was becoming stronger. One evening, Oliver met his old friend Jack. Jack looked worried. He told Oliver that he had an exam, but he could not remember his lessons. Oliver saw himself in Jack. He remembered his own struggles. He decided to help him. He taught Jack the visualization method. He taught Jack the story method. He taught Jack repetition. Jack practiced. After some days, Jack came back with a big smile. He said, "It worked." Oliver felt proud. He realized that knowledge becomes more powerful when you share it. That night, Oliver sat quietly and thought about his transformation. He realized that the biggest change was not his memory. The biggest change was his belief. He no longer believed he was weak. He believed he could grow. He believed he could improve. This belief gave him strength. As months passed, Oliver continued practicing. Memory training became part of his life. He did not see it as a task. He saw it as a habit. He would observe people. He would create images. He would repeat information. He would review his day before sleeping. Every night, before closing his eyes, he would remember his day from morning to night. This simple exercise made his memory sharper. One night, as Oliver lay in bed, he remembered his past self. He remembered the boy who felt lost. He remembered the boy who felt embarrassed. He felt grateful because that boy did not give up. That boy kept trying. That boy became the person he was today. Oliver finally understood one of the greatest secrets of memory. The brain remembers what the heart feels. When something has emotion, it stays. When something has meaning, it stays. When something has imagination, it stays. Memory is not about forcing. Memory is about connecting. Years later, Oliver became known as a person with an excellent memory. People often asked him, "How do you remember everything?" Oliver always gave the same answer. He said, "I do not remember everything. I just remember what I pay attention to." He explained that memory is like a muscle. If you use it, it becomes strong. If you do not use it, it becomes weak. But Oliver never forgot his most important lesson. The goal was not just to remember more. The goal was to live more. To see more. To feel more. Because memory is not just about the past. Memory shapes who you are. One evening, Oliver stood again near the same window where he once stood as a confused boy. But now he was different. He was calm. He was confident. He was proud. He looked at the sky and smiled. He knew that the human brain has unlimited power. He knew that anyone could improve. He knew that change was possible. And in that quiet moment, Oliver made a promise to himself. He would never stop learning. He would never stop growing. He would never stop believing. Because he was no longer the boy who forgot everything. He was the boy who trained his mind. He was the boy who changed his life. And deep inside, Oliver knew that if someone else was struggling, if someone else believed they had a weak memory, their story could change too. Just like his story changed. Oliver's journey did not stop there, because life always tests you when you begin to change. One morning, Oliver received unexpected news. His teacher announced that there would be a special competition in the town. It was called the Mind Challenge. In this competition, students had to listen to long lists, stories, and information, and then repeat them correctly. It was designed to test memory, focus, and mental strength. When Oliver heard this, his heart started beating faster. Just a few months ago, this competition would have terrified him. He would have tried to avoid it. He would have told himself that he was not capable. But now, something inside him felt different. He was still nervous, but he was also curious. He wanted to see how far he had come. At first, fear quietly entered his mind. A small voice whispered, "What if you fail?" Oliver stood silently after class, thinking deeply. He remembered all the days he practiced. He remembered all the small victories. He remembered how he trained his brain step by step. He realized that this competition was not an enemy. It was an opportunity. That evening, he made a decision. He would participate. From that day, Oliver started preparing himself seriously. Every morning, he trained his mind. He would listen to news and repeat it in his own words. He would look at random objects and create stories. He would memorize small lists and connect them with crazy images. He used visualization. He used association. He used repetition. But most importantly, he used belief. He believed that his brain was growing stronger every day. Some days were difficult. Sometimes he made mistakes. Sometimes he forgot parts. Sometimes frustration returned. But this time, Oliver reacted differently. He did not see mistakes as failure. He saw mistakes as practice. He understood that every mistake was helping his brain grow. Finally, the day of the competition arrived. The hall was big and full of students. Some students looked confident. Some looked nervous. Oliver sat quietly in his chair. He could feel his heart beat. He looked around and realized that everyone was fighting their own battle. He closed his eyes for a moment and took a deep breath. He remembered his journey. He remembered who he used to be. And he remembered who he had become. The competition began. In the first round, a man spoke 20 random words. The words had no connection. They were simple words like apple, mountain, chair, river, candle, horse, and many more. Oliver listened carefully. But he did not try to force himself to remember. Instead, he created the story. He imagined a giant apple sitting on a mountain. On the mountain, there was a chair floating in a river. On the chair, a candle was riding a horse. The story was strange. The story was funny. And because of that, it stayed in his mind. When it was his turn, Oliver slowly repeated every word. One by one. Correctly. His voice was calm. His mind was clear. When he finished, he realized he had remembered all 20 words. A quiet smile appeared on his face. In the second round, the challenge became harder. This time, they read a long paragraph. Many students looked stressed. Oliver listened carefully. He broke the paragraph into small images in his mind. He connected each idea with a picture. When his turn came, he repeated almost everything perfectly. He missed only one small part. But instead of feeling disappointed, he felt proud. He knew he was improving. As the competition continued, Oliver realized something important. He was not fighting against other students. He was only proving something to himself. He was proving that change was real. Finally, the last round arrived. This was the hardest round. They showed a long list of numbers. Numbers were always difficult to remember. Oliver felt nervous again. But he remembered his training. He converted numbers into images. He created a story. He stayed calm. When his turn came, he spoke slowly. His voice was steady. His mind followed the story he had created. And when he finished, something unexpected happened. The room became quiet. The judges looked surprised. Oliver had done it. He had remembered almost everything. At that moment, Oliver did not care about winning or losing. Because something more important had already happened. He had faced his fear. He had trusted himself. When the results were announced, Oliver's name was called. He had won second place. Second place. Some people might think second place is not enough. But for Oliver, it meant everything. Because he remembered the boy who believed he was weak. He remembered the boy who was afraid. And now, he was standing there, stronger than ever. When he went home, his parents looked at him with pride. His teacher smiled and said, "This is just the beginning." That night, Oliver sat alone and thought deeply. He realized that memory training had given him something greater than memory. It had given him confidence. It had given him discipline. It had given him belief. He understood that the brain changes when you challenge it. He understood that limits are often created by fear, not by reality. From that day, Oliver continued his journey. He kept reading. He kept observing. He kept practicing. But the most beautiful change was inside him. He was no longer afraid of learning. He was no longer afraid of forgetting. Because he knew he could always improve. Years later, Oliver became a person who inspired others. People often came to him and said, "I forget everything. My memory is weak." Oliver would smile and tell them his story. He would tell them that he was once the same. He would tell them that memory is not about talent. Memory is about training. He would teach them simple lessons. Pay attention. Create images. Repeat. Believe. And slowly, those people would change too. One evening, Oliver was walking alone during sunset. The sky was orange and peaceful. He stopped for a moment and closed his eyes. He listened to the wind. He felt the present moment. And he realized something beautiful. Memory is not just about remembering the past. Memory is about building yourself. Memory is about becoming stronger. Memory is about becoming the person you once believed you could never be. Oliver opened his eyes and smiled. Because he knew one simple truth. The human brain is powerful. But belief makes it unstoppable. And the boy who once said, "I forget everything," had now become the man who remembered his true power. His journey started with doubt. But it ended with belief. And his story proved one thing. Anyone can change. Anyone can grow. Anyone can train their mind. If they decide to begin. Oliver's life continued, but he was no longer living the same way. Something inside him had awakened, and that awakening changed how he saw himself and the world around him. One quiet night, he sat at his desk and opened his old notebook again. The pages were slightly worn, and some ink had faded, but the memories were still alive. He slowly turned the pages and saw the first exercises he had written. He saw the simple lists. He saw the small stories he had created to remember things. He saw the handwriting of a boy who was trying, a boy who was struggling, a boy who refused to give up. Oliver smiled gently, because he knew that notebook was not just full of exercises. It was full of courage. It was proof that change begins with small steps. He realized that memory was never the real enemy. The real enemy was the belief that he was not capable. For many years, he had accepted that belief without questioning it. He had called himself weak. He had doubted himself. But the truth was, his brain was never weak. It was only untrained. Just like a muscle becomes stronger with exercise, his memory became stronger with practice. This realization gave him peace. It made him gentle to himself. He understood now that every person has hidden power inside them, but most people never discover it because they stop trying too soon. As Oliver sat there, he began to remember his entire journey, from the beginning to this moment. He remembered the frustration. He remembered the embarrassment. He remembered the fear. But he also remembered the small victories. He remembered the first time he successfully remembered a list. He remembered the first time he felt confident. He remembered the competition. He remembered the moment he stopped seeing himself as weak. All those moments were like pieces of a puzzle, and together, they created the person he had become. He stood up and walked to the window. The night was calm, and the stars were shining softly in the sky. He looked at those stars and thought about how vast the universe was, and yet, inside his own mind, there was also a universe full of possibilities. He realized that the brain is not limited. It grows when you challenge it. It improves when you trust it. It transforms when you believe in it. Oliver made a quiet promise to himself at that moment. He promised that he would never again say, "I can't remember." Instead, he would say, "I am learning to remember." He promised that he would never again doubt his ability to grow. He promised that he would continue to train his mind, not because he was afraid of forgetting, but because he loved becoming stronger. As time passed, Oliver carried this lesson into every part of his life. Whenever he faced something difficult, he reminded himself of his journey. He reminded himself that progress is always possible. He reminded himself that the person he is today is not the person he must be tomorrow. This belief gave him endless strength. And the most beautiful part of his story was this: Oliver was never special. He was never born with a perfect memory. He was just an ordinary person who decided not to give up. He was just a person who chose to practice. He was just a person who chose to believe. One day, someone asked Oliver, "What is the secret to remembering everything?" Oliver smiled and answered softly, "The secret is not in your memory. The secret is in your decision. When you decide to train your mind will change your life." Oliver looked forward with hope in his heart, because he knew his journey was not ending. It was only beginning. There were still many things to learn, many things to remember, and many ways to grow. And deep inside, Oliver knew one simple truth that would stay with him forever. Your memory can improve. Your mind can grow. Your life can change. All you have to do is begin, believe, and never stop training your mind. If you enjoyed this story and want to improve your English and your life, make sure to subscribe to the channel and join this learning journey with us. And watch the next story on your screen to continue improving your English.